Okay, I'm going to make this quick as possible. Today we're talking about the atomic bomb and why the decision was dropped to make why the decision was made to drop the atomic bomb, both of them. So here are some things that we talked about before we did the assignment. So we talked about how it was basically Japanese culture and law, as you'll find out when you read. Basically, it was law in Japan that if you give up, you're breaking the law. They didn't back down. They didn't surrender. That's one reason why there weren't a lot of prisoners from Japan, because they didn't surrender. They just kept fighting until either our soldiers were killed or their soldiers were killed. So that's why there wasn't a lot of prisoners. So given that mindset, we were thinking, okay, we have two options. First option is we either keep fighting and we lose thousands of our men to war, and they lose thousands of their men to war, and we have thousands and thousands of death, and who knows how long this war could go on. And we're ready for it to end because we just ended the war in Europe, so now we want to end the war in the Pacific with Japan. So the second option, number two, is to drop the bomb, end the war quickly. And yes, thousands will still die, but at least less will die than compared to keeping the war dragging on forever. And no Americans will die. So it's a way to basically save American lives. I mean, if you were going to have a choice between saving your family and saving someone else's family, what are you going to choose? Your family, right? So that's kind of where they were coming from. Not going to say if it's right or wrong, but that's up for you to decide. But that's kind of where their decision was coming from. They also, part of their decision was, they also kind of wanted to show Russia or Soviet Union at the time what they were capable of, because Soviet Union was kind of like the whole phrase, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. We weren't really friends, but they were the enemy of our enemies. So we're like, we'll tolerate Russia, we'll tolerate the Soviets right now during the war. We don't like them, we don't like communism, but we'll tolerate them because they're helping us defeat Germany. So, and they really were fighting against Germany, not really against Japan. So after Germany fell out of the war, it was hard to get them, to try to convince them to fight with us with Japan. It was only after we announced that we would use it that they're like, oh, well, yeah, we'll help you fight against Japan. So it was also kind of a warning to Soviets. We're like, hey, look what we can do. Don't try us, kind of thing. And which unfortunately only made them seek to race to get a bomb just like we had, and thus started the Cold War, which we'll talk about later. So here we have another instance of a war causing another war to happen. Great. So anyways, those are the reasons why we decided to drop the bomb. The second thing that we talked about was the fact that we dropped two bombs. First one was on Hiroshima, the second one was Nagasaki, and we dropped it only 3 days after the first one. So we were kind of talking about, is 3 days enough time for a response from Japan to come back? I mean, travel communication didn't work as fast as it did today. It took a while for the news to reach them, and then they had to gather people together and to discuss their response. Was that enough time? Should we have given them more time? In the reading, it'll talk about how, like part of it is like, the narrative or position, the perspective that Hiroshima and Nagasaki, like they're victims of American bombs. There are victims. Is basically like that's not enough time. We bombed them. This is one perspective, okay? That when we bombed, we didn't give them enough time to have a response. And that second bombing wasn't just to like shock them into surrender. It was to be like, bam, bam, we're hitting you, and now you can't surrender because we hit you 2 times. Kind of like it was too much. It wasn't needed. Is some people's position. Some people's positions was we should have waited a little bit longer, let them have a little more time to have an actual official response, and if they wouldn't have accepted, then drop the second one. And some people think that we shouldn't have dropped it at all. So no matter what your opinion, you're entitled to it, because there's no win situation. There's no best way to go about this, really. Either way, people lose, people die. So so we were talking about that. But I mean, I kind of equated it to like a lot of people think of something had to be done, because it's kind of like if you have, imagine the most stubborn person that you have ever met, and trying to get them to do something. Are they going to agree immediately? No. Do you have to convince and convince them? Yeah, probably. And that's kind of how the Japanese psyche was. They were trained to not surrender. So, some people think that, they needed extra, motivation, if you will, to surrender. America just wanted the war to be over with. So that was the quickest way to get it done. Having the least amount of American lives lost is why they did that. So the assignment that we did today is right here, atomic bomb decision. So you're going to click on that, and it's going to have a reading. I've got a bunch of different types of readings because I assigned different types of readings to different kids so that we would have different perspectives in our discussion today that we did. So you might not have this exact one because I wanted to spread out the perspectives among the kids. Basically, you read it. There's going to be questions. Make sure you answer the questions and then you turn it in. That's pretty much all there is to it. So all of our classes were able to finish it during class, so they didn't have any homework. So yay. And that's it for class today. So let me know if you guys have any questions.